Fix It RC here today to show you how to wire up the FMS PA-18 1300mm RC airplane. There's a PMP and an RTF version. The wiring's pretty similar other than you would put in your own receiver. The RTF will come with the receiver already wired to the plane. It'll have ailerons plugged into channel 1, elevator channel 2, throttle channel 3, rudder channel 4, the S-Bus PPM mode wire that goes to the Reflex in channel 5, and then a tri-splitter in channel 6. So this tri-splitter will go to both flap servos as well as one of the lights coming out of one of the wings. And then inside the plane, plugged into the Reflex, is also a tri-connector plugged in the aileron channel, and that'll be for 2 aileron servos and the other light for the other wing. The throttle cable coming from your ESC is already wired into your Reflex, and the ground wires, the brown or black wire, will be facing the front of the aircraft, while the wires coming out of the back of the Reflex will go towards the back of the aircraft. If you get the RTF, this is how it'll come, and I'll show you how to wire up the tail section. You've got your elevator and rudder wires already coming out of the tail section of the airplane here. They're pretty long, and they're marked rudder and elevator on the ends of them. Simply take the fuselage, I point it nose down, and I feed the wires into the channel in the fuselage. And I just kind of shake them down in there gently. You shake it back and forth, they'll just fall as far forward as they can go. Insert the carbon fiber tube, slide it together, insert your 2 screws. If you have trouble getting those screws in, I plant the front of the plane against my body and I pull it together and then drive the screw in. One side sometimes is easier than the other because these holes don't always line up perfectly. But if you pull it together, get a screw in one side, then do the other side and pull it, it usually goes in without any major issues. So once you've put the elevator and rudder wires through, you can see here's my rudder wire. It already fell out. And if I look down in there, it looks like the elevator wire got caught up on the Velcro for the battery strap. So those are right there. And so they just come through the body of the plane to the front, and these get plugged into the Reflex gyro directly. I take my aileron wires and move them over to the side. Right under your ailerons is going to be your elevator wire, and so that's going to get plugged in there with the brown wire facing the front of the aircraft. And I oftentimes will use needle nose pliers like this to grab these leads with the brown wire forward. I'll get it at a little angle. It's hard to do when it's not on the table. And slide it in between the aileron and the throttle, and then push it down into place. Then grab your rudder, that'll be the last one. Grab it with the brown wire facing towards the front of the airplane. Push it into the Reflex where it goes, and make sure it's seated properly. So if we look real close, we can see that the elevator one isn't seated down all the way. You can use a flashlight or something to take a look and make sure everything is laying flat. Now, another important thing is the Reflex needs to be mounted securely. If it's loose, wobbling around, or if it comes loose completely, comes off the board that it's glued to, if you've got stabilization on, the Reflex is going to try to make the aircraft level to what where the Reflex is. So if the Reflex comes out, this one has been taken out before, so it's not stuck down very well. But if it comes out and it's facing up, it's going to make the plane go down because it wants this to be in a level horizon. All right, so it's important that if this ever does come loose, go ahead and grab it and wiggle on it. If it comes loose, pull it out, put a couple drops of super glue on it, and put it back in the same direction, in the same location that it was. Make sure it's not off center. It needs to be parallel with the aircraft, and make sure it's in the same orientation with the wires coming out that go to the receiver towards the back of the plane. That'll go in just like that. And then make sure that that's glued in and secure. All right, and then once we've got the elevator and rudder wires plugged into the Reflex, we've got our receiver wired up. If you're using a Spectrum receiver because you bought a PMP, the channel orientation is going to be completely different. Throttle will be channel 1, ailerons will be channel 2, and then elevator will be channel 3, and rudder will still be channel 4. But it won't be what the instructions say, because the instructions are kind of like a universal normality, having throttle on channel 3 and ailerons on channel 1, but Spectrum does things different. So once you've got this, you'll go ahead and mount the wings. So I'll put the wing spar in here to keep these nice and strong. All right, and you've got 3 wires coming out of the wings. One is not marked, that's your ailerons. One is marked, it's called flaps, and the other one's marked lights. And the light wire is only a 2-wire plug with red and black wires. So you fish these into the hole in the fuselage that lines up with the wires coming out of the wing. Slide your wings on, put in your 2 screws on the bottom. Do the same thing for the other side. Stuff the wires into the fuselage, and then you can reach up under here and pull them out individually. Make sure they all get through and nothing gets stuck in between, so you can get your screws in. Okay, so we've got a flap wire here, another one that's not marked, that's an aileron, and then where's the light? Here's the light. All right, and so that's our right wing, and then I'll grab the wires from our left wing, 1, 2, and 3, there they are. Again, marked, lights, flap, aileron. So our ailerons are going to go into the tri-harness coming out of the Reflex, and it doesn't matter which one goes to which of the 3 harnesses coming out, because it's just a Y harness, they're all wired together. So aileron is one that's not marked. I'm going to match up the wire colors. So in this case, I'm holding the female end with the brown wire on top, so I want to make sure that the brown wire is on top on the other side. I'm going to push it in all the way until this little clip reaches around the plug and grabs onto it. All right, and then we've got a light wire that's also going to go into a aileron output, and I'm going to match up the black wire with the brown wire and the red wire with the red wire, and we're going to ignore the orange wire, because this is only, the lights only have 2 wires and only need 2 wires. It's just power and ground. It doesn't need a signal like a servo does. And then I'm going to grab the 3rd aileron lead and plug it into the 3rd harness coming out of the Reflex for the ailerons. Again, lining up the orange with the orange, the brown with the brown, red is always in the middle, and clipping that in until it's in all the way. Then we've got our flap wires that go to our 2 ailerons for the flaps, and those go into the tri-harness coming out of channel 6 on the receiver. We're going to go ahead and plug those in, making sure that our wire colors match. So orange with orange, red, red, brown, brown. I know I keep repeating that, but the most common mistake is somebody plugs in one of those backwards and it short circuits out a servo, and then I get messages saying my servos don't work, and I ask for pictures, and that's plugged in backwards. And then we've got one last harness here, and that is for the light wire for the other wing. And we're again just going to match up black with brown, because those are your negatives or grounds, and the red with red. The 2-wire plug goes into the 3-wire plug. All right, so that is complete for wiring. As long as the Reflex is mounted securely, we can just tuck the rest of these wires into the airplane. receiver wires. These are the antennas with the little pink leads, the two gray wires that come out with the pink ends on them. If you can get these mounted where one is kind of vertical like this over here in the side of the plane one way, and then this one can be either straight back or straight forward in the plane. You just kind of want those antennas at 90 degrees to each other in some orientation in the plane if you can. And that's just to help pick up the best radio signal you can. Tuck the rest of the wires in, finish the assembly of the airplane, and you are good to go.